Welcome to American Pulse and Paranormal. Tonight, we embark on part 2 of our journey into the eerie and enigmatic world of Poveglia Island. For the best experience, we recommend wearing headphones. Let's dive into the haunting tales of this cursed island, as recounted by Marco, the grandson of a man who once walked its haunted grounds. The second night. A man whose name has been erased from history, but whose actions have left an indelible mark on the souls of those who suffered under his care. It was a cold, foggy night when my grandfather, Dr. Giovanni, decided to share more of his experiences on Poveglia. We sat by the fire, the room dimly lit by the flickering flames. "Marco," he began, "there are truths about the doctor that are too horrifying to forget. His experiments were not just about curing madness. They were about pushing the boundaries of human suffering." One evening, Giovanni continued, "I was working late in the asylum when I heard a commotion from the basement. The patients were restless, their cries echoing through the corridors. I decided to investigate, and what I found still haunts me to this day. The doctor was in his private laboratory, a place no one was allowed to enter. The door was slightly ajar, and I could see the flickering light of candles inside. As I approached, I heard the doctor's voice, calm and steady, as if he were conducting a routine examination. But what I saw was anything but routine." Giovanni's voice trembled as he recounted the scene. The doctor was standing over a patient who was strapped to an operating table. The patient's eyes were wide with terror, and his body was trembling. The doctor held a scalpel, and he was speaking softly, almost reassuringly, as he made precise incisions. The patient's screams were muffled by a cloth gag, but the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. I wanted to intervene, but my body was frozen in fear. As he continued, Giovanni described the doctor's methods in chilling detail. The doctor believed that by causing extreme pain, he could unlock the secrets of the human mind. He would perform lobotomies without anesthesia, believing that the raw, unfiltered pain would reveal hidden truths. He would isolate patients in dark, confined spaces for days, depriving them of food and water, to see how the mind would react. His experiments were nothing short of torture, and the asylum became a place of unimaginable suffering. Giovanni's eyes filled with sorrow as he spoke. One night, I heard the doctor talking to himself. He was convinced that he could communicate with the spirits of the dead through his experiments. He believed that the suffering of his patients would open a gateway to the other side. He was obsessed with the idea of life after death, and he would stop at nothing to prove his theories. Giovanni's tale took a darker turn as he recounted a night that changed everything. One stormy night, much like tonight, the doctor's obsession reached its peak. He had a patient, a young woman who had been brought to the asylum for her hysterical behavior. The doctor was convinced that she held the key to unlocking the secrets of the afterlife. He subjected her to his most extreme experiments, pushing her mind and body to the brink. Giovanni's voice cracked as he continued. "I was on duty that night, and I heard her screams echoing through the halls. I couldn't stand by and do nothing, so I gathered the courage to confront the doctor. As I burst into the laboratory, I saw the young woman lying on the table, her body convulsing in pain. The doctor looked at me with a mixture of anger and fascination. 'You shouldn't be here, Giovanni,' he said. 'This is my work.' But I couldn't let him continue. I reached for the young woman, trying to free her from her restraints. The tension in Giovanni's voice was palpable. As I reached for her, the lights flickered, and I felt a cold breeze sweep through the room. The doctor's face twisted into a sinister smile, and he whispered, 'They're here.' In that moment, I saw shadows moving on their own, and I heard whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. The young woman's eyes rolled back, and she let out a blood-curdling scream. The doctor's experiment had gone too far, and he had unleashed something beyond his control. Giovanni paused, his hands trembling. That night, the spirits of the dead made their presence known. The asylum was filled with an unearthly energy, and the doctor's madness had opened a gateway to the other side. The young woman did not survive, and the doctor vanished, leaving behind only his twisted experiments and the lingering presence of restless spirits. As he concluded his tale, Giovanni looked at me with a sense of urgency. "Marco," he said, "the island is cursed. The doctor's actions have bound the spirits to this place, and they seek vengeance. They reach out to anyone who dares to set foot on their cursed land. You must remember these stories, for they are a warning to those who would ignore the darkness that lies beneath the surface." Giovanni's tale was more than just a story. It was a chilling recount of true events that stained Poveglia with an eternal mark of fear. He warned me, "Never let these tales slip into oblivion, Marco. They must be remembered, for they are part of our history." As I sat there, listening to the crackle of the fire and the haunting memories of my grandfather, I realized that some stories are more than mere folklore. They are the echoes of the past, calling out to be heard. The following night, Giovanni decided to take me deeper into the island's dark past. "Marco," he said, "there are places on this island that hold even darker secrets. The doctor's laboratory is just the beginning. There are old tunnels and hidden chambers beneath the asylum where the most horrifying experiments took place. These places are shrouded in darkness, and they hold the echoes of the tortured souls who suffered there." One night, Giovanni continued, "Mario and I ventured into these tunnels. The air was damp and cold, and the walls were covered in moss. We could barely see a few feet ahead with our lanterns. As we walked deeper into the tunnels, we heard faint whispers and the sound of footsteps behind us. The darkness seemed to close in around us, and the feeling of dread grew stronger with every step." Giovanni's voice grew quieter as he described the scene. "We reached a chamber at the end of the tunnel, and what we found was beyond anything could have imagined. The walls were lined with shelves filled with jars containing preserved body parts and organs. There were old, rusted surgical instruments scattered on tables, and the floor was stained with what looked like dried blood. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the feeling of death was overwhelming." Giovanni paused, his face pale. In the center of the chamber, there was an old wooden table with restraints. It was clear that this was where the doctor conducted his most gruesome experiments. As we stood there, frozen in horror, we heard a faint, ghostly voice whisper, "Help us." The voice was filled with pain and despair, and it sent chills down our spines. We knew we were not alone in that chamber. Mario and I turned to leave, but the tunnel seemed to stretch on endlessly. The whispers grew louder, and the temperature dropped even further. We felt as if the spirits were trying to hold us back, to keep us from escaping. We pushed forward, our hearts pounding with fear, until we finally emerged into the cold night air. Giovanni's eyes were filled with a mixture of sorrow and fear. "Marco," he said, "the island is cursed. The doctor's actions have bound the spirits to this place, and they seek vengeance. They reach out to anyone who dares to set foot on their cursed land. You must remember these stories, for they are a warning to those who would ignore the darkness that lies beneath the surface." As I sat there, listening to the crackle of the fire and the haunting memories of my grandfather. To be continued. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of Poveglia's mysteries. Your support means the world to us, and we hope that these stories have touched you as deeply as they have touched us. We look forward to seeing you in the next part. Thank you for being part of this journey. Your support and compassion have given these stories the light they needed to be told. As we close this final chapter, we leave you with a message of hope. No matter how dark the past may be, there is always a chance for redemption and peace. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to American Pulse and Paranormal. Let us continue to explore the mysteries of the unknown together and keep the memory of those who came before us alive. Thank you, and good night. May your dreams be haunted by curiosity and compassion.